There it is. All right, we're good.
Okay, I'm going to call the Regional School District 13 Student Achievement Committee meeting to order on January 24th, 2024 at 4:33. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Have a motion to approve the agenda. Anybody?
moved.
Lindsay? Second?
Second, Jamie.
Second, Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item number 4 is approval of minutes for October 25th and November 29th.
Lucy, you missed public comment.
Oh my God, I skipped right over it. I'm sorry. Let's go to public comment. I
Should
have,
go after approval on the agenda anyway, so that's okay.
yeah, I have a letter here from Tina Herbert, who is unable to come, and she asked that if I would read it. Pertains to one of the items on the agenda. And she says, tonight I'm sharing from the perspective of both a former employee at CRHS for 15 years, a parent within the district, and a Durham resident. The CRHS National Honor Society selection criteria and process need an overhaul. Unfortunately, CRHS has historically and steadfastly adhered to the constraints outlined in the scoring rubric, negatively impacting fairness and equity. We can and should be doing better by our kids. Number 1, the first time applicants are made aware of the selection criteria and points that can be awarded is when they receive the application for NHS, which historically, including this year, has been distributed 2 weeks before the due date. This is too little, too late. Number 2, in addition to a minimum GPA of 3.66 required, applicants are scored in leadership, character, and service. The leadership score is subjective and inequitable. Students receive 2 points for every CRHS leadership position they submit. 1 point is allocated to positions held outside of school. It could be argued that a student organizing a community roadside cleanup should get the same number of points as someone who is the president of any of the CRHS clubs, but does not under current guidelines. Placing more value on activities within the school could also be counterproductive to greater community involvement. Number 3, the character score is determined at an after-school staff meeting where only certified staff are given a list of applicants' names and are asked to put a check mark next to the name if they can vouch for the student's character. Each check mark equals a point to be used in the rubric. Teachers who are absent, paraprofessionals, and coaches are not given the opportunity to participate. Some CRHS teachers refuse to participate as they are uncomfortable with the process. Also, if students attend a half-day public magnet school and CRHS, those magnet school teachers are not asked for character input. Number 4, regarding the service score per the CRHS application, quote, in order to qualify, a total of 30 or more volunteer hours are required, end of quote. In the scoring rubric, which students do not have access to, additional points are given if students show more than 30 hours of service. This should be made clear and accessible to students beginning their freshman year. Number 5, for the NHS National Constitution, the Faculty Council and NHS Council Selection Committee, quote, shall meet at least once a year to review the procedures of the chapter, select members, and to consider non-selection, dismissal, other disciplinary actions, and warning cases, end of quote, Article 7, Section 3. Also in Section 4, quote, the Faculty Council will develop and revise when necessary all chapter procedures for selection, discipline, and dismissal of members, all of which must remain in compliance with this Constitution and NHS policies." End of quote. Let's not blame COVID, difficulty recruiting members for the faculty council, or changes in staffing for this lapse. And finally, number 6, per the NHS National Constitution, quote, "The faculty council shall reserve the right to award honorary membership to students who warrant special consideration, including those who receive accommodations for a disability or foreign exchange students, in recognition of achievement and/or outstanding service rendered to the school in keeping with the purposes of the National Honor Society." End of quote. There is a whole segment of the CRHS population that has never been considered and should be considered for membership. This suggests that atypical situations that do not align with the current rubric should be considered when evaluating applications. Thank you. Tina Herbert, parent of 2021 and 2024, RSD 13 employee, 2008 to 2023, Durham resident, 2006 to the present. While we're on public comment, is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment?
Hi, Lucy. This is Nick Fiala. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Nick Fiala from Middlefield. I was just going to listen to make sure that I wasn't the only person that thought the National Honor Society selection process needed to be improved. It sounds like I'm not alone with concerns over the process. In fact, over the years, I'm sure the school district has heard complaints from many individual parents regarding the National Honor Society selection process and how it impacted their kids. I wrote an email in May of 2023 regarding my concerns over the selection process. And on the surface, what I thought was clear gender bias, which as significantly more female students are included every year, while the number of boys is exceptionally low for the size of our school. When pressed for response, it was never really explained to me as to why or what would be done to fix it. It remains a concern for me to this day. Given the number of concerns and the fact that at least 2 people have decided to put pen to paper and explain their concerns to the administration, you can do one of 2 things: continue to defend the existing process or look for ways to improve the process. I think we can agree that the overall goal should be to have more students that achieve this status rather than fewer. Additionally, as many juniors as possible, as while it's nice to receive this accolade as a senior, it's far too late to actually put it on your college applications, which are pretty much sent out in the fall of your senior year. As we look to achieve that goal, let's look at the GPA requirement. It's 3.66 at Coggins-Shott, while at Xavier and Mercy's, it's 3.25. At Sheehan, it's 3.5. Keep in mind, Xavier had well over 150 students inducted to the National Honor Society in 2023. Lowering the GPA, which would still be in the range required by the national standards of 3 to 4, would make more students eligible from the start of the process, and I would say significantly more. I'm told that approximately 40 to 60 kids are eligible for National Honor Society each year based upon GPA alone. Lowering the GPA would substantially increase that pool. Next, you need to work on with guidance to increase the application rate, which, if I recall, stands at about 60%. Why is it so low? People are eligible. Why aren't they applying? We can't ignore that. If someone wants to go on to higher education, this achievement is a critical part of the application process. The application numbers need to rise, acceptance of the applications needs to rise closer to 90 to 95%. The ultimate and important part of the process. This is ultimately the important part of the process. Parents need to be included in the eligibility notification. There are 4 pillars to the National Honor Society. We discussed one, scholarship. Let's talk about community service hours and in general. National Honor Society requires no minimum, and it's not quantified. The CRS handbook does not quantify this either, but I'm told they use an internal number of 30, while Mercy and Xavier use 12. The lack of quantification in the student handbook means that the students are not made of what the requirement is until probably when they're juniors. Far too late to decide on a number and put in the hand in, far too late to try and make up the hours that might be required. Also, there's no difference to volunteers' hours outside or inside the school. We've got to stop looking at that. The number is now, if you do this, the number is now quantified and everyone will know what it is. Leadership is the next one, hard to quantify, but if students demonstrate this as a junior, then we should accept this as part of their application. If it's demonstrated on their applications, it should be accepted, not challenged. Character, well, we shouldn't have any discipline issues, and thus that pillar should be very easy to say yes or no on. We should look to automate the process. I'm told the school uses a rudimentary rubric, but perhaps we can somehow look for more automation. My point is the application should be approved or disapproved via an automated process. The faculty committee should only be looking at those applications which are automatically denied to see how many of them should be overturned due to extenuating circumstances. By only looking at denials, the workload is significantly reduced for the staff members, and you'll get more people to accept positions on the committee. Before I conclude, I wanted to give you a real life example. My son Evan was denied as a junior and again denied as a senior. He's now a sophomore at Brown University. As you all know, Brown is an Ivy League institution. During his final interview with admissions, he was asked why he was not on the National Honor Society. He really had no response. It was never explained to him. So the admissions officer had to evaluate why a student applying to Brown with a 3.8 GPA, captain of his baseball team, captain of his football team, and countless volunteer hours was not admitted. Was it a discipline problem that she wasn't aware of? Absolutely not. The problem is the selection process. The point of the story is when an admissions officer is combing through hundreds of applications with a looming deadline, and she picks up 2 applications, one from Xavier and one from Coggins, she will see that the applications are identical, same GPA, 3.5, but the one from Xavier also lists National Honor Society. Should she look to see why the CRHS student did not make National Honor Society, or should she just put the Xavier one in one pile and the Coggins one in the other pile? I think we all know the answer. We all know which pile the Coggins application went. And I can tell you this, she will not say, oh yes, I just remembered the Coggins uses a higher standard that's required than the National Honor Society. I better take another look at that one. That's not going to happen. Remember, the overall goal should be more students admitted to the National Honor Society, not less. The more students in National Honor Society, the better Coggins looks as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else? Linda, Lindsay, I keep calling you Linda. Lindsay, do you have someone online? You should have to change your name. You're muted.
Well, that would make sense why no one can hear me. I don't see anyone else. I just see staff on the board.
Okay. All right, we've already approved the agenda a little bit early. And now we're on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. We have 2 minutes, October 25th and November 29th. I believe we held off on October 25th because I was abstaining. I wasn't at the meeting and we didn't have enough members, but I believe we do now in attendance.
Yep.
So we'll start with the October 25th, 2023 minutes. I have a motion to approve.
So moved, Lindsay.
Second, Jamie.
Any corrections?
No, I did not see any. I went through them pretty extensively. I didn't see anything.
Okay, so all in favor? October 25th, 2023 minutes?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? And 1 abstention would be me. And for November 29th, 2023, a motion to approve.
So moved, Lindsay.
Second, Jamie.
And a second by Jamie. Any corrections or changes? I'm okay with it.
Yeah, there was a couple at the beginning, but they've been cleared up, so nothing on this one.
Okay. All right, so moving forward, all those in favor of approving the November 29th, 2023 minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Or abstentions?
Linda abstains.
Linda, you're abstaining. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, those are approved.
Someone might have been on a trip then.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 5, National Honor Society selection criteria. I'm going to hand that over to you, Deb, and get some input from you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And
I hope that you saw the PowerPoint or the slides presentation. If not, I'm going to share this. I'll share it anyway. I shared it in advance in case you had some questions. If you have questions during or after, feel free to let me know. You'll have to speak up though, because once I think I share my screen on Zoom, it's harder to, it's harder to share. Yeah, I can do it on Google. I'm really not that great. Let's hang on one second.
Does it
If
allow
not,
you
you
to do
guys,
it when you click, can you click share screen down at the bottom?
yep, you guys can't see that, can you?
It might be set to host only.
Oh, yeah, because it doesn't say, it says I can share the one I'm on with you guys, the whiteboard, the iPhone. Let's see if this works. Hang on, I might, maybe,
There you go.
can you see it now?
Yeah, you're up.
Yes.
Perfect,
Yeah,
okay.
that's-
So, like I said, I can see some of you, so speak up if you have a question, feel free. So long as we can go forward, I don't have a mouse. All right, Linda, how do you make it go forward if you don't have a mouse and you're sharing your screen
Just
on
like,
Zoom?
just click,
I did.
hit
Enter?
and hit enter
Enter, enter.
or the right arrow.
Yeah, neither of them work. Hang on, let me see if I can. There, so I did something. All right, so went back in all the yearbooks in our office and finally found our first chapter of National Honor Society, February 1957. There were 8 members inducted, and we were inducted by the Guilford chapter because you have to be inducted by a chapter that already exists. The current application process is outlined in a policy, a Board of Ed policy, and it's been in place since 2009, and it was reviewed in 2011, but it was not revised in 2011. I think it was written, I don't know, I think in 2009 it was revised, originally written, I think in 94. And this year we have 21 members in good standing. So this is how we do it. And you heard from Tina and you heard from Mr. Fiala. They have their facts correct. First, we compile a list of junior and seniors who have a cumulative GPA of a 3.66. After they are academically eligible, they may elect to apply. And then they use the rubric for leadership, community service standards, and then the character piece, discipline is included, as well as speaking to somebody's character. I don't know if at one point people had to get letters of recommendation or not, but in my knowledge, that rubric that Tina had spoken about does exist in order to quantify this process. All applications are reviewed by the CRHS faculty committee, and I can speak to that for a minute. Mrs. Herbert, talked about, they needed to meet 3 times a year. We've not been able this year to even get a faculty committee together before my time, and I don't know the history of this, and I didn't look it up on purpose. Before my time, I think there were some FOI requests and other things of the faculty council when some students didn't get in. I don't know when this was. I just know it was very uncomfortable. Somebody mentioned that they had been subpoenaed, but I can't imagine that that was the right word. But that's what somebody sort of said, so that they're not willing to serve. We are going to have people serve. I believe it's, a professional responsibility to get people on this committee, and that is what we're going to do. So the administration stays out of it in the selection process. We review and certify the applicants for admission. So if they come to us either on the bubble by the faculty council, or we look at them ourselves and think that something needs to change, we can do that. Juniors who are not selected to be in National Honor Society or who become academically eligible can apply senior year. I agree. Bob and I have already had a discussion about this way back early in the year. Last year, again, no blame of anyone's, except that the application process happened even a little bit later than this year. Tina, before she left, was going to be our National Honor Society advisor. And she left for another job, so we got new advisors in September, and it's taken us a little while to get our feet off the ground, which is why applications were actually due this year on Monday. This chart, we did some research. This is the Shoreline schools. It gets a little interesting because when we reached out to somebody like Valley Regional High School and said, well, what does a 100 out of 120 mean? They said, we don't really know. It's what Power School does for us. So however they determine their number, it's a Power School formula. But these are the Shoreline schools. I know both Cromwell and Hale Ray up in East Haddam recently went from a 3.6 to a 3.8. We were in contact with them because their handbook says one thing and their actual numbers are different than that. So you'll see we range anywhere. Again, Westbrook's 90 unweighted. I mean, we all know what a 90 average is. The 100 out of 120, that can be an average if you want to make it that way. But we range anywhere from a 3.5 to a 4.2 at Lime Old Lyme High School. There are 92 weighted. So I put in what is a 92% as a weighted grade, and that's what I got, 4.2. So if that number is incorrect, I own that. But they use a 92 weighted grade. So that's just informational. That's what we collected from the different schools. And so I can share with you what's been going on so far. So some of you were on an email over the summer with the percentages that I did, and we'll get to that in the second little slide. But this is the historical information by numbers. I just went in and did who was eligible, who applied, and who was admitted from 2019 until we don't have the admitted numbers, obviously, yet for this year, but that's what the numbers have looked like. You know, and the percentages that I sent the board over the summer did break it down by gender. So I can go back and give you the raw numbers, but I literally just took the numbers and made them percentages out of how many students we have, how many boys we have, how many girls we have. So this year we had 50 students who were academically eligible. And I did break this out for you today. So we had 44 of 106 juniors that were eligible. I'm sorry, 44 out of 106, 12 were boys, 32. Let me think my math, hang on. Hold it for 1 second. Yes. Yes, academically, 44 out of 106 were eligible. Sorry, I just did this today. One would think I'd have a better handle on it. 12 out of 47 were boys and 32 out of 60 were girls, meaning the breakdown in that junior class is there are 47 boys and 60 girls. So there's more girls than boys, still not percentage wise. I can turn these into the percents like you saw them over the summer if you want. Seniors, there were 14. We only have 85 in our senior class. So 14 out of the 85 were eligible. We already have 21 seniors in National Honor Society. So you can add that 21 and know. 12 were boys, 32 were girls, 32 out of the 60, sorry. And so as you go across, this year, we had 35 of the eligible, out of the 58 eligible across apply. 9 were junior boys, 26 were junior girls, and 2 are senior girls. None of the 12 senior boys. And it is late. And like I said, we did have that discussion. So that's the data from this year. So
Can I ask a question? And actually, can
Yeah.
you go back to that for a second?
Yeah.
And this could definitely just be me fighting off the dogs. The way I'm looking at this is, so I'll just take the first column, the juniors, 44 were eligible. And then but below that, it says 50.
So 44 students altogether in the junior class were eligible
Okay,
by their academic standards. Yeah.
And then, but then.
I left my paper. And I went over this afternoon with somebody
Okay.
too. Wait,
So I guess what I'm curious, and I think I'm not
Oh,
good with
I-
numbers.
I know
So
why.
shouldn't that be 35 out of 44? If 44 were eligible, and
They're
then,
juniors and seniors together. The juniors
Got
and
it.
seniors added
Thank you.
together, there were 58 that I know, I have to do it too in my head every time.
okay,
There were 58 students eligible this year when we started the process. But if you break it out by juniors and seniors
All right.
and then by boys and girls,
got it.
same kind of thing.
Thank
And
you.
my denominators, I think for my senior class have to be wrong because there's only 85 kids in that entire class. So these denominators over here,
Got it.
incorrect, but I will certainly fix them and you'll have access to it because it's in the PowerPoint. So
Cool.
this 58 number represents all juniors and seniors that were eligible to
Perfect.
apply.
Got it.
And
you.
their applications came in Monday and we got 35 total out of the 58. This year, additionally to one of the comments that was made, we added an extra carrot to the application process. We told them that we would, and this came through a student, this was a student idea, that we would consider, with permission of the parent, extending some junior privilege to any junior that applied. They did not have to get in, they just had to apply. And that way they could possibly, again, with permission of their parent and the fact that they had a study hall in the morning or in the afternoon, could come in late or leave early on a study hall day. I don't know if that's made a difference. I haven't looked at, or talked to the students, obviously, to ask why they applied or why they didn't apply. One of our strategies can certainly be to talk to, those 13 students, nope, 23 students that didn't apply, and ask them, why they decided not to apply. I'm going to guess the seniors, much to the point of that everyone's already made, is it's too late to put it on your college application. Though, if you do a year of junior college or whatever, and you got in, you could still use that. A lot of kids are still making decisions now, but that doesn't matter. So those are some of the things we have looked at. That is, I made my presentation short on purpose because I do feel, having been up at the high school for almost 2 full years now, believe it or not, I think April sometime is my beginning of my 3rd year. I do think it's something that, we should look at, and whether it's the school going through and checking how we want the policy rewritten. I know you guys are in policy review anyway, or if we want a subcommittee of the Board of Ed or 1 or 2 of you to work with us, I'm happy to do that. I don't know if we look at this list, to Mr. Fiala's point, I don't know the reaction to lowering the GPA for National Honor Society. I mean, I just, when you look at the National Honor Society criteria by the book, the 3.0 out of a 4.0 is an unweighted GPA. It's just nationally how they calculate it, and they don't give you the weighted numbers. If we were to go to an unweighted GPA in our power school, that would mean that our honors classes and our AP classes do not carry more weight, literally, than our regular A and B classes. Right now, they carry either a half point more weight or a full weight if it's AP. And that's a decision.
Deborah, the ones on the ones on this one, unweighted or weighted, or we don't know?
They're all weighted except for Westbrook.
Mhm.
But Valleys, I don't, admittedly, I meet with them tomorrow and I'm going to say to her, I don't really, I mean, if I know what that is as a percentage. And so I would guess that that's a weighted GPA. I mean, weighted cumulative.
If I
average.
remember from Valley, it has something to do with each 0.5 is weighted a certain way in the GPA. It depends on electives versus core classes and AP.
Right.
So I think that's probably a outlier.
Right, so that's weighted, but it's weighted by a percentage, which doesn't even work out to a percentage. It's weighted by a ratio, not
Mhm.
but the rest of them are all weighted GPAs. We did ask that question when we we had to actually go back to them because everybody does do it differently. Again, to the point of everyone out there.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. It's so hard to see so much difference between all the different schools. And, you know, I had seen the slideshow, so I pulled it up. So I was looking at other schools just to begin with. And I think some of that is because it's unweighted but no one knows that. So if my perception as you know, when I was looking at this is that everyone met a certain amount of criteria, but when the criteria is subjective and the GPAs do not match over just based on numbers, even though it's a fair assessment, the fact that we have schools that kids have got a 3 point, whatever the perception. And I see what Nick's saying, and that's kind of where it rang when I was talking about looking at the different schools. And it just seems, even going through the national constitution requirements, we just need to get a committee together and overhaul it and listen to every different type of stakeholder, see, you know, if we can even get past National Honor Society members, some parents and the board and the oven, just to give us some feedback. Because I think ultimately parents want to know really, really early that their kid can be involved in this. And if they don't know it till
Right.
Totally
And I
fine.
did have a conversation with another parent about transfer credits, and that's another thing I think we need to look at. I completely agree. Some schools give no transfer credit. Some have a length of time they have to be at the school before they're eligible, because it is Coggins National Honor Society. So if somebody were to come in, I don't know, now, or I guess 3 weeks ago, with a 3.8 GPA from X school, you know, how we handle that should be uniform. And I do know that our guidance counselor guidance counselors handle it uniformly, but it's hard to speak to the rigor of another school. So when you have levels of classes, that rigor is easy but to speak to, because most schools have honors, advanced, and different levels, AP, whatever. But the rigor of the electives is hard to establish. And somebody could tell me that Mercy has a really hard photography class, or that, you know, Vinyl has a really hard engineering class. But I can't speak to that rigor to be able to give it a different weight. I shouldn't say me, I should say my guidance counselors. And so I agree, looking at the transfer credit process is important, and the amount of time somebody has to be at Coggins to earn the nomiker of National Honor Society for Coggins Regional High School. So like the question is, should somebody that comes in senior year who only is there one semester, should they be able to apply? I don't have an answer to that. I would want weigh in, again, to your point, Lindsay, from, you know, staff members and from, you know, a few parents that are in the know about education. Because I don't know how many of our staff members or how many of our parents will want our GPA to be the lowest, or to lower the GPA to let more. And I don't know the answer to that. It could be all of them. It could be none of them. I just don't have a feel for that. I wanted to give you guys the straight up process and let you know how it worked and keep it informative. You know, I'll look at my denominators tomorrow, Linda. Sorry about that. It's because Katie was out. It's not, no, I'm just kidding. It's not because Katie was out. And we'll go from there. Does anybody else have any questions?
This Bob, I just think that the process for the seniors, as I told Deb earlier this year, needs to be done in September, based on, or October, but based on your junior year results, because the juniors are getting in with their sophomore and half their junior year, you know, grades. And so I think it needs to be earlier. I think Nick has a lot of good points, and so does Tina. I would think that the students in the National Honor Society would have good recommendations on what was wrong with the process and what was right. And I think, you know, I've had my kids and my grandkids there, they've all had issues with the National Honor Society, well, for some reason or other. But I think, for example, it was last year, they didn't know they had service requirements until they got the application, which gave them 2 weeks to figure out the needy service. So I think a lot of the criteria needs to be in the handbook, it needs to be up front. And people ought to talk about the National Honor Society, and I think the National Honor Society students ought to be talking to the rest of the classes about, why it's important to be here, what they get out of the National Honor Society, and how to really get into it. And also the National Honor Society has some events, and they need to highlight those events, I think, in the school.
No, absolutely. And just to speak to that point, Bob, and I'm sorry that I forgot that. I didn't know that part, that they didn't know the service requirement, but we also have a community service requirement. And it's back in place now that we're out of COVID, that actually Brian and Matt before me had put back in. This year's seniors have to have 37 hours by graduation. And then starting with next year's seniors, they have to have 50 by graduation. And we've been telling them that consistently now. It didn't happen for your grandchild, Bob, and I know that, like, for her application process, but they do know consistently now that that is another piece of that. So if the 30 is for National Honor Society, but they need 50 to graduate, that is a little bit better, and we're getting them to start earlier with that community service requirement, but that doesn't help you right now.
I think that the idea of the transparency as far as when a freshman comes in, they should know what the requirements are. The rubrics should be public. That's just one of my major thoughts is the need for everything to be searchable, Googleable, and be right there. My other thought is being very aware that going through, and I think it should, don't get me wrong, this is just a cautionary tale, that going through and looking at the requirements could very well lead to it's kind of like pulling a thread on a sweater that could really get into some of the need for grading reform in general, right? If you're looking at parity, or you're looking at the weighting or anything like that, it's going to be hard to just look at NHS entry without a larger conversation about how different classes and different grades are valued within the school. So I just kind of want to put that out there to plan on more time. If the decision is to review these, it could very well lead to some pretty significant conversations with implications for the grading process sees at the high school in general.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, my home phone never rings. We're not going to answer it. I don't know why we still have it, but there's that too. No, I agree with you, Linda. There's a, huh?
Can I say something really quickly too?
Oh, you're
on
echoing,
topic?
Doug.
I'm
Sure.
echoing.
Yeah.
Am I still echoing?
Yes. You have two mics on?
Any better now?
Nope.
So I guess that's a no. You can't say something, but I'd like you to.
Doug, you can always use the chat feature and put it in. We can all see it like texting, right?
Yeah.
I think he's gonna try
Now the
another way.
the chat's turned off other than for the moderator.
So I agree with you, Linda. I think it could lead to a much bigger, shall we say, can of worms that, that if we try to tackle one thing, class rank, not that, I mean, we don't rank everybody, but class rank and all those other things go along with this. And that can be difficult. Yes. I'm learning.
Deb, who was, I didn't realize that Tina was taking over for that before she had left. Who was the advisor before?
Before Tina,
Yeah.
it was Todd Petronio for about 4 or 5 years. When he got here, Brian asked him to do it.
Okay. And do
And
we
this
have
year,
any idea if like last time that we revamped National Honor Society, or most of the requirements have been fluid?
I don't think there's been any changes, like I said, because when I read through the policy for the Board of Ed policy, it read pretty clearly, similar to what we do now. So I would say, like I said, that was, revised in 2009 and reviewed in 2011. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that reviewed meant that that somebody, whoever was on the board, read it and just kept it the same. So I would assume since 2009, I don't know about the changes between 94, 96 and 2009. But from what I read of the way it goes on that policy, it's pretty close to where we are right now.
Yeah, it just seems like there's just so much that could be redone and reorganized. And we just kind of, we're going with the flow because it was the requirements.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. I mean, until it's a question, that's,
Yeah.
until it doesn't
Especially
work.
even with like, I'd love to see, again, we can send it to the board, and if the board wants to do it, it would be nice if Student Achievement would send that. And we could give some more directive on it, and hopefully we could, work together just to collaborate on that. I'd love to see Linda's lens on it, just because there's a big equity change between 2009 and now. And so if there are other things, I noticed at the national constitution level, there was some changes, based on disabilities and equity. And
Absolutely.
and that if you're willing to, Linda.
And I would love to, I mean, I want to make sure we have
Yeah.
my academic teachers on it, because I'm sure they have a very big opinion, and that's good. I'm glad that they do. So I definitely want, some of my teachers to be part of this, because that's really important to me. I certainly cannot make those unilateral decisions, and I wouldn't.
I think
because-
so too. And I'm just looking at like streamlining it so staff feel comfortable to be on a council. I'm a little concerned that we're not putting enough in place so that there's a rubric so that, it really can't be questioned. The more the content and the criteria that we can take out that's subjective is going to help the staff and make it
Agreed.
clear to guidelines when a kid is in, a freshman and wants to know, hey, do you think I could work towards this? They're at least going to have a rubric. I think a freshman in high school is different. Differing opinion of what leadership is between then and a junior year is a big difference, unless that subjective mentality is kind of laid out for them. So,
I agree 100%. I feel for them because teachers, and I think Linda would agree with this, teachers usually love to do this kind of stuff, and they feel like they're helping in a process, but I think whatever happened was really bad, and that's why I won't ask what actually happened, because I don't really want to know. But I think it was really bad, and it really tainted the whole faculty council and process. And I think that's even to the checkbox to mark their character. I think all that stuff was FOI'd, and it had teachers, I believe it had teachers' names on it. And then there were questions about, well, why didn't you say my child had good care? I don't know. And so I guess it was not good.
Well, it looks like the consensus is that we're going to be taking a look at this, at the criteria, and doing some revamping. And then I believe once that's completed, then we should probably upgrade the Board of Ed policy as well, so that they're in sync. So I guess
my only concern is just time. I just want to thank Deb for the conversation that we had, and also Nick and Tina for sharing their stories. And I think Nick's story is actually what affects me the most, is hearing that there's students, and I know there's many that are on to Ivy League schools or just have phenomenal grades and in phenomenal schools, but yet were denied or not even given a chance to become part of National Honor Society in our district. And to me, that's the biggest disappointment. And yet again, to echo, I think what Bob was saying too, is we're looking at yet again another group of juniors and seniors that are, the longer we take to rectify this situation, because it has been something that's been brought up specifically by Nick for over a year now. I feel like dragging our feet and taking forever to do this is now going to be detrimental to yet another group of kids. And I just don't think that's fair. I think that this should be probably a top priority for at least this junior class. Because I agree, I think that as it is important for seniors to also be included if they weren't invited junior year, that it is too late. So I guess I'd like to know, or would like for it to be a priority. I don't really want to wait until the next student achievement meeting.
No, I think what
Do
I'd
we
like
have
to
a
see
timeframe?
is that we'd recommend to the board that student achievement wanted to look at this as, a priority, and we wanted it done as soon as, possible, that we could get a group together and rework it. I think it's probably going to take a while. It just seems like the whole process needs to come from the ground up and rework the whole thing. But yeah, we can make it clear we want it to be a priority.
Lucy, can you hear me now?
Ooh, much better.
Yes,
Better.
there you are.
Yep.
I'm in on my phone now. I agree with everything that's been said. The one suggestion, and I don't know if this would come from the school or the group that works on this, or maybe both. I would be very interested to know what the true impact of National Honor Society membership is on college admissions and scholarships and things like that. We heard Nick's testimony. There's a part of me, the skeptic in me, that feels like we're going to spend a lot of time on this. And when I look at some of that data around who even applies, I'm just wondering if NHS is something that maybe had more value in generations past, but I don't know that. I don't know what UConn and, he mentioned the Ivy League Brown, but other schools, if it's even something of value, because I hate to see us spend a lot of time on something that maybe has seen its better days. I don't know where it ranks with all the other things that our students are now able to bring to the forefront in the application process. I'm just wondering how much or how little merit this has. And I don't know that answer. I wonder about
So
that.
Doug, I can address that, or not address it because I don't know the answer, but my counselors can certainly find out, because they have a lot of contacts in the state schools especially. And they can ask that question if we need, and I will ask them to ask, how much weight does it really hold? Because, I agree with you that, to your point of that, and then that speaks to the urgency too. If it does.
I can touch base with Cape too, and see what they have on. I mean, I haven't heard that, at least at the Cape level. And if we've got students that are still going for interviews where it's pertinent, I mean, if there was a phase out of it for some reason, or a less weight given to it, and we started hearing that, you could plan for that, but it's hard to not incorporate it when we.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think,
I think-
I'm not suggesting that we not do this or even do it with urgency. I want to be fair to everyone involved about, what are the colleges actually, if we're saying to the kids, you need this for your college, I want to make sure that's actually true.
right. And I to kind of go off of that, I think that at college, just like with the whole competency base or mastery base, a lot of parents and or teachers may be like, well, the colleges don't know what that means. Don't know what that means when kids are applying. And that's not the case anymore, because there's enough schools that are doing that kind of a thing. And so similarly, my thought with, and again, I don't have the data, so I too am interested to find out more, that what NHS is a filtering system that you take kids' actual data and evidence and filter it through faculty, as opposed to when you apply to college and you're showing all of your leadership, you're showing all of your service learning. And so the schools see actual data, not how a group of certified teachers interpreted that data. So I also would be curious, I suspect. And, truth be told, I had a C average in high school. I did pretty good for myself. I did not, I was not inducted into National Honor Society or any honor society.
And college entrance aside, I think we have to really just be aware that there's a huge population of kids that just have this as their own personal goal. And so it may not even be a college, oh, I can't get in, I can't apply for this college or that college just because I didn't get in there. We have kids who choose AP and honors classes, and we offer several, and we have kids that almost every class they're taking are AP and honors classes, and that is a personal goal for them, college entrance aside. So we have to be cognizant of those students as well.
Okay, any other thoughts? I think we've covered a lot.
Do we think we have, I mean, I think that's hard. What's hard to know too, Does like in what Maura was saying, and people that are kind of maybe affected or in that whole swing of subjectivity, is there a process to look at that and identify anything that might need an extra lens for this year, just based on the criteria?
Like if a child doesn't get into, they get feedback.
Yes.
That
Yep.
is going to be part of the process. It was because I was personally with Todd last year when he did give some feedback. But that is going to be, in my estimation, with the new advisors, something that they need to sit down and go through the rubrics with them. And we always do make them available, but they're available afterwards, to your point, Linda, like the transparency, where they're scored, not before. So that is going to be my suggestion to the two new advisors. They're new, so they won't know that's just needs to be done because they'll be told. But yes.
Okay. All right, we have some good direction, good ideas.
For coming and answering all that.
No problem.
Moving on to item number 6, an EL update.
Okay, that would be me. So we are, we are going to, I'm going to start by giving you an update on K through 5. So our teachers are beginning or into module 2 at this point with our kids. At this time, a lot of our teachers are starting the middle of the year benchmarks. So they took their beginning of the year benchmarks in October. And they were kind of able to generate some data, and these assessments are different depending on the grade level and just the needs and what they're focusing on with our kids. And so that is on the way now. I will say that we did lock in some one-to-one coaching for some of our instructional coaches. And so now the goal with that is the coaches are able to build a schedule with the coach that is going to be working with them on EL. And they will be able to bring their personalized questions to those coaches and get more of a direct answer on things that they're starting to really just needing more information on. I know one of the big things that they're really questioning a lot about is they have these cycle assessments within the skills block and the all block. And so they're questioning a lot about those. And so the benefits of having the one-to-one coach is now we have somebody specific that we can go to when we need those answers. So that is happening. We have our next professional learning day coming up next month on the 16th, where our teachers will be given the flexibility again to build their professional learning day. And so based on the feedback that we got from our November PD, a lot of the teachers expressed their gratitude and appreciation for having that time just to be able to work, whether it was independently or with the paraprofessionals or with their group of teachers, just to be able to plan and look ahead and talk about, what's been working well and what they have to change up. So I just sent the information out to them today about that. So they'll have another day coming up where they can catch up on some planning. It's, the feedback that I gave you back in November is kind of the same as right now. And I will have more specific feedback at the next meeting because we're meeting with the coaches and their interventionists on Friday this week, where we do talk a lot more in depth about just what they're seeing and things like that. But, we are hearing really positive things from our students. We're hearing they're really enjoying the lessons. They're really enjoying the structure of the class. our teachers are saying that they are seeing a lot of progress, especially our students who have who are in special education. But it continues just to be a challenge for our teachers with just learning, each module by module and taking it day by day. So I think, that they have the structure down at this point of what it is like to go through those modules because they've been through one full round. So now it's just more about the understanding of the content and what builds each module. And then that background knowledge continues to be a struggle, which we anticipated. So they are taking some time to really stop and teach our learners that background knowledge that is needed in order to really be successful in those modules. But the hope is as we continue getting into these modules, we won't need to spend that much time building that background knowledge because they'll have it. We also were recently, like last week, I had received an email from our KIDM rep for two specific things. The first one is they are offering a grades 3 through 5 phonics program that is separate from, but in alignment with the EL curriculum. I have a meeting with him and two of our coaches this week on Friday to see what that's all about, because that is something that we are still really focusing on. There is no phonics instruction in this program for grades 3 through 5. As it gets up to grade 2, it goes then into the all block. So again, our teachers are really spending time. They're actually, some of our third grade teachers are using the skills block from second grade, and they're using it with our third graders because they just need a lot more of that reinforcement and that support with phonics instruction. So we're gonna get a sample and hear out our rep from KIDM to see what this program is all about and whether or not it's worth exploring. And he also had mentioned that he has time to come up to us and meet with us in person for free, because it's a part of our professional learning, for more personalized in-person PD between the months of April and June. So we're kind of starting to have conversations about what might that look like, what's the use of his best time, how are we able to get teachers in, and when we're able to do that. So that's something that, again, is kind of in the works, and we're having conversations about that. I know, yes, go ahead.
Who is it that has this program, 3 to 5 phonics?
So the online program that we use right now it's called KIDM, KIDDOM. And so basically they are the digital platform that we use for our EL materials. And it's got a really great, from a student perspective, it has a great, not as appropriate for our K through 2, but more for our three and up. It's got a really nice feature because the teachers are able to go into this program and they can differentiate the lessons in as many ways as they need to or want to. And they can push those lessons out to individual students, to groups of students. And then from a student's end of it, they have the ability to work on the platform, to take assessments on the platform, and then the teacher can see the work that's being done right there. So not too many of them are using it as much this year, just because with the understanding they're trying to learn the content and the curriculum and the program and everything. But it is a really great program, and we've had a really good partnership with them. And so they're the ones who are research. They've really been doing a lot of research. They really take a lot of the feedback that we give to them, and they use that feedback and really try to make improvements. And so that was why this grades 3 through 5 phonics program came to be, because they heard the teachers loud and clear say, our kids in grades 3 through 5 are still struggling with those components of phonics, and we really need something. And sure, some of the materials from the younger grades are okay to bring up for some of our kids, but that's not realistic for all of them. And so they really heard that out. They did a lot of research and they developed this program. I just heard about it last week, so I'm really interested to see what it looks like and what it entails. So like I said, that's coming on Friday. We'll have a meeting with him.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'd
those
like
are,
a little bit
yes,
more. Later, I'd like to kind of look at it when it gets developed, and just to take a look at it.
absolutely. And so then moving to, I know we had brought up the middle school at our last student achievement meeting, and we talked a little bit about it at the Board of Ed meeting. this past month. So Cheryl, do you want to start? Do you want me to start? What do you want me to do?
Either way, I do have two dogs running around me play fighting, so I'm doing my best. If you hear it, it sounds bad, it's not. I'll do a little bit, Stephanie, but then
Yep.
jump in because she's the expert on this. But we are looking at starting it in 6th grade next year. And when I spoke to the 6th grade ELA teacher, who's current, she was very excited about it. And we also had the 7th grade teacher there as well, and she wanted to jump in and do it. But we decided let's like kind of ease into it because the students that we will have next year will have had one experience with it. So we'll keep building off of that each year. We also have allotted extra time for both ELA and math because we really want to continue with those foundational skills. And one of the things I think in 6th grade is that you always wonder, like, how much do they need more of that elementary model? And then, or scheduling. So we're thinking about along those lines, but teachers are excited by it. I am too, because I think the rigor is definitely there and the ability to differentiate, which to me is, both of those are crucial. Anything else? Stephanie?
No, I think that's, and one thing that we have had conversations about and why they're as eager to kind of get a jump start on this because they really want to start learning about the, pieces of it. We were able to meet with the rep a couple of months ago where she really walked us through, and the design of the structure of it is very similar to the structure of K-5, where, the modules start with a unit. I'm not going to use the words they use because it gets confusing and I don't want it to be confusing for you, but they start with a unit where they're specifically working on building background knowledge. So the kids are doing a lot of research and just learning about whatever that focus is. And then it kind of goes into that application phase. But it's a very similar structure. It's just they're learning a little bit more. The topics obviously that they're learning are different. Very much like the K-5, the topics are aligned to they embed a lot of social studies and science skills in there. But the teachers were very, very excited to hear about it. And we also already have the one-to-one coaching ready to go for our middle school coach as well, so that she can start learning and really jumping into this right away, so that they have time.
I think before going forward for approval, and sometime between this month and next month, we'll talk about it more. So I think I would like to hold off on approval for 6th and 8th grade until we really take a look at the results and of the program that we already have. You've got some evaluations that have already been done beginning of the year, mid-year. So we'll be looking at those at our next meeting. And also, when we were before the board approved it for, I thought it was just grades K-3, you had a link that you had put out that we were able to access all the materials, all the topics and how the program was laid out. I mean, really specifically get into it, even the skills blocks as well. I wish you could send that again to me, that link, or to anyone else who's interested, so that we could take a look at it again and take a look at the what topics are covered and also the skills and stuff and how they're laid out.
I could and you'll be able to see all K-8 in that one place. They're all located.
That's what I would be looking for is K-8. I have a question. Do all the students read the same book when they're in a module, or do they?
So there's two different components to it. In one of the pieces of this program, they will read a book together as a class. But then there's another component to it where they will have more of a choice in what kind of books they want to read, and there will be time for them to read it. So they get a little bit of everything.
So the choice of books they want to read, is that all listed out for them and they pick from a list?
Yes and no. So some of them, from my understanding, some of them will bring in their own books, and the teachers will, as long as they're grade level appropriate and appropriate for school, the teachers will allow them to read that during their free choice time. The teachers also do have books that are within their classroom libraries that are aligned to the modules that they're working on, so that the kids can also have access to those. And those books are really helpful in helping them to really understand more about whatever it is that they're learning at that time. And it's, you know, it also offers a variety of levels for our readers, so they can choose something that they're able to actually read independently, as opposed to just having all the same levels where they might struggle if they're, because that part is usually done during an independent time. So there's a variety of options for them, but they do have choices with that.
Are there any
I
other?
think too, looking, yeah, Lucy, if I could, is that okay?
Yep. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Looking at possibly expanding to 6, I understand it. It's streamlining it. It's making it easier for that 5th grade coming in. I'm a little concerned just because I feel like that 5th grade schedule has been not what I think we would expect for the 5th graders. And I don't know how that would go in with the 6th graders, but knowing that we're in January and they still haven't done an ounce of social studies that's in the rubrics. I mean, and parents have reported that their kid hasn't read a book this year. They're still on the same book from the beginning of the year, that they're not offered time to go to the library. Again, I'm not saying just across the board from what I'm hearing that it's been a challenge for the staff and it's a challenge for the kids. Do we have any idea if that structure would continue with 6th?
So what I can say to start is the 5th grade EL program has that additional all block to it. And the 6th grade curriculum does not have that. So, you know, grades K through 2, you have that extra skills block. Grades 3 through 5, you have that extra all block. But then when you get to grade 6, it's just specifically the module. So the time that they need to be able to implement the program is really cut down a lot, just because they don't have that extra 30 to 40 minutes of those programs. Cheryl, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more.
I just think it's a tough time to make such a scheduled jump that will be different than what they're used to.
Right. I'm not sure what Memorial schedule is for 5th grade, to be honest. I kind of stay in my own lane when it comes to knowing all the specifics. But what we are looking at doing is increasing in academic or core areas in the 4 core areas. So we'll be able to increase both math and ELA, and a very negligible decrease in social studies and sciences, which is consistent with what a lot of middle schools in the state do. But we would then be able to move ELA and math to every single day, which we currently don't get. And so, you know, I'm excited by that, because I do think that's what our kids need at this point. They need more time with the basics. So that's it. I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, I
Lindsay.
agree. And I think that makes sense what you're saying, Cheryl. It's hard looking at it from a lens of just the EL mandate and begin with. You know, we chose a program and just looking at all these different districts across the state that, you know, either didn't apply for a waiver or just decided not to say anything. And it seems like the legislation's coming back and really allowing for more programs. I think it went from 7 programs to 19 now that are allowed by the state. So I think it's going to be hard for the board to be able to move that into 6 without seeing the progress, just because there are 19 now approved programs. So that might be something that you guys may want to look at and be able to explain that to the board and why it's the best program for what they need.
Okay.
I think that's all I have on that one.
What I was going to say, if I could jump in, is I think with regards to the schedule, I think we could and will probably make improvements to the grade 5 schedule with the reconfiguration too, looking at 4 and 5. I think you know, that'll be another year for the principal there. I think what Cheryl and I have seen at Strong is that regardless of the program or the curriculum, the 6th grade schedule could use some revamping. And I think as it pertains to this program, if the board's not comfortable moving forward, we certainly won't. But I think it's important to know that the feeling is that what we're using right now is less than adequate. And if we wait too long for an implementation decision, to Stephanie's earlier points, we're gonna lose the opportunity to kind of train up in advance of. And so I think for us, it made sense if we're gonna stick with EL, which I hope we do, that we would eventually move up into the middle school. And so I guess we would just want to know, you know, could we come to the next board meeting maybe with some information? If this thing goes too far into the spring, I think it's going to get behind us too much.
Well, and that's why I
Yeah.
said it now, just because I'm like, if the more information we can get, I think the better is going to help with that. And part of it too is not really understanding, just, you know, talking amongst people, is that ELA program, is it exactly what that grade needs? Is the structure of EL education okay? Is the content within that okay? And I think that there's some confusion as to content versus inquiry curriculum and some of the content that's in the EL program now. We have some teachers teaching the content and some made up their own content and went through lesson plans and did it that way. I think knowing exactly what's going to be in those modules for the 6th grade would be something that the board would have to see before we would be okay with it, or if we are able to change out the content if necessary.
Yep. And that's why I asked for the links at this point, because the sooner we get them, then the sooner we can look at it and make sure we have a decent discussion at our next meeting, not to drag it out too long. Okay.
Yeah, and we wanted to align with budget too, if that's necessary, if it's a change, so.
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, last item on the agenda, evaluation update.
Okay, that's also me.
Poor Steph's gonna lose her voice tonight.
And I was at a training all day today. I'm just going. All right. So we are in really, really good shape. And I will say I have been to a couple of trainings over the last few weeks, and just hearing the other districts around me talking, I could tell that we're in very good shape with where we're at with our plans and everything like that. And I think one huge benefit that we have is we have a really strong PDEC, and it's a very collaborative PDEC. And so, as I had mentioned at the last meeting, we do have a large PDEC group. And for those of you who don't know what that stands for, it's the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee. And our large group of 30-something individuals is made up of elementary teachers, secondary teachers, administrators, special education teachers. We have some guidance counselors, some school psychs, some social workers. So we really have a good variety of individuals on that large committee. But what we felt was that having a meeting every month with that many people, we just wouldn't be as effective of getting things done quickly. So then what we did was we asked for volunteers to form a smaller committee that has, there's 10 of us on it. And our smaller committee, again, is a very diverse group of individuals with a variety of roles. And Matt Tabor, who's the science teacher at the high school, is the PDEC co-chair along with me. So we did have our last committee, our subcommittee meeting this past, I think it was the January 10th, we had our meeting. And we made a lot of progress at that meeting, but we still have work to do. So just to give you some specifics of what decisions we had made at that meeting, we have selected the standards that we're going to use at least for the 24-25 school year. So we're going to stay with using the CCT for educators and for service providers. That's what we've been using all along. But our goal next year is to really continue to research some of the other nationally normed standards that are out there in order to bring more diversity into our evaluation process. Because we have that option but we just felt like to try to do that right now with everything else, it would just be a little too overwhelming. Then we did go ahead and create a timeline for what this process would look like from the start of the year to the end of the year. And one thing I do want to stress is we are really doing our best to stay away from the typical traditional terminology, because we really want our teachers and our administrators to feel and to know that this process, this is something that's meaningful for them. This is something that's to help them to be reflective, to set goals for themselves, to, you know, incorporate professional learning that's going to help them to improve, and then to just continue that cycle on and on. But all throughout this process, that feedback between not only the teacher and their evaluator, but the teacher with other staff members, with other teachers that they might be working towards the same goal with. That is really a big component to all this. So we felt that in order to really navigate away from this, this nerve that everybody gets when they hear T-eval, we needed to change the terminology. So we're still working on the name of our plan, but you're not going to hear me saying a lot of things that you might hear, just because that's kind of our goal, is to really make it more meaningful. So phase 1 is what we will do between September and November. And throughout that phase, it's going to start the school year off with every, you know, educator creating or going through a self-reflection. So really thinking about not only their learners in that current year that they're going to be teaching and looking at the data that they have from them, but also thinking about their past practices as an educator and really being reflective. And so we've come up with a form, a very brief, easy, open-ended form, which we're still kind of working on, but the goal is to provide that to our teachers, to have the rubric attached to it so that they can kind of go and reference that if they need to have a list of guided questions to go to if they just need that extra support of thinking, and get that reflective part started. They're going to start with that. And then once they have their self-assessment completed, then they're going to create their goal with that reflection. And that goal can be something that they're creating as an individual or with a group of individuals. But the whole point is they're going to then take their goal to their evaluator, and they're going to collaborate on that goal. And there's got to be a mutual agreement between the educator and the evaluator on that specific goal. So again, that's where that collaboration is going to become huge. And if the individual needs help with that goal setting, then the evaluator is going to be there to help support them. And then the evaluator will again provide that feedback. So that's phase 1. And then phase 2 is going to happen between December and April. And during this phase, this is when the growth plan would be really implemented. So this is when the educators are going to spend their time doing their professional learning. And we're really going to, you know, find a meaningful way. Right now, we have a Google Classroom that the committee has said has been really beneficial, because if they are looking for something specific, they can just go to this Google Classroom, look to see if there's anything there. If not, Google something. If not, they know that they can reach out to me and we'll always help them find something. But the goal is to really research, and it's an action research focus. So really to do that research behind what it is that they are focusing on as their goal for that year, or it could be an up to 3-year goal, which I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. They modify their practice at this point based on what they learn and what they're understanding. They're constantly just going through that process. And then they're going to do a mid-year self-reflection again on where they are at that point from the beginning of the year, how much growth they've done, what they still want to accomplish. And again, they're going to be meeting with their evaluator and constantly getting that feedback. It's going to be both verbal and written feedback. And then phase 3, which would be done between May and June, they would again complete an end of the year self-reflection, really thinking about the year as a whole, thinking about, you know, what they learned that year and how they're going to continue to do that moving forward, year 2, year 3. If they created a goal that was a 2 or 3 year goal, maybe being reflective on, you know, something that they thought of at the beginning of there might be different at that point. But really just thinking of that end year self-reflection, again, meeting with the evaluator, getting that feedback. And then the evaluator would end the year with writing a summative report that would be provided to the individual, which we're not going to call a summative report because we want to stay away from those words, but we're trying to come up with some unique terms. And then in terms of observations, what the committee decided on was if we have an educator in our district that has less than 2 years in the district, they would have at least 2 or more evaluations. And then if there is the educators that have 2 or more years would have at least 1, but that is the minimum. There could be more if the evaluator requested, if the educator requested, but no matter what, those observations again are really going to be focused on that feedback component. We are 100% staying away from using a scale and grading staff as we go in to evaluate them. It is way more about how is the teacher performing? How are our learners doing? Is the teacher, you know, are they showing that improvement, or do they still need a little bit more support? But that feedback, whatever that feedback is that the evaluator gives to that teacher, that educator, that's going to be key. That's going to be a really important part of this whole process because we need that feedback for continuous growth. So we kind of are outlining our plan. We do have a few more things we have to talk about. And then, like I said, we are in the process of beginning to create some forms because we are not using ProTrax after this year. So we're beginning to really build up some forms. Basically how that works is Matt and I are taking the feedback from the subcommittee, which also came from the larger committee. I create a couple of forms. I share them with Matt. Matt gives me feedback, and we have collaboration going back and forth either digitally through our Google Doc, through the comments, or the two of us meet a lot. I would say if we're not meeting every week at this point, it's definitely every other week. So we do have another meeting with our larger PDEC coming up in February, at the end of February. And our goal at that meeting is we are going to bring all of this work that we've done over the last couple of months since we met with them last in November. We're going to present to them what we did, and then we're going to spend some time gaining their input, gaining their feedback, and then going back to the drawing boards and making any necessary changes and continuing to work on the rest of the plan. And that's it.
That's it. Wow, you developed a lot since the last time we talked about evaluations. A lot.
We've done a
has
lot.
been
Yeah.
developed, right? Absolutely. Any thoughts, questions, anybody? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Lindsay.
Second, Jamie.
Well, that's consistent.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
And nobody's opposed. Okay, we're going to be adjourning the meeting at 5:56.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great
Thank you
night.
all. Appreciate
Thank
it. Have a
you.
great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.